Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 811, 811, June the 15th, 2019, Saturday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, well, it's kind of a slow news day, but we certainly have some things to talk about. One thing I've been wanting to talk about for a few days now, I have not had a chance to get to it, so looks like I will be able to get to that today. So let's go ahead and talk about some things here. It was reported in the Gateway Pundit today that Stefan Halper, the fat man, otherwise called the Walrus, I believe Papa Garoppolos refers to him as the Walrus, he is set to appear at Cambridge, of course, over in London, at a spy conference in July. Also attending will be Sir Richard Dearlove. And, of course, we all know that Halper has been sued by this woman, Svetlana Lakova. She calls him a rat, worse than that, actually, and says that she was setting up Flynn. And, of course, committed an act of libel against her in the process. So that's why she's suing him. I haven't heard much about that since the initial report, but I'm sure it's moving forward. These things do not move that quickly, but be very interesting in the deposition process, the discovery process of what we learn about Halper, although we may learn other things about him before that happens, just because of the investigation, I guess we could call it, that is ongoing right now with William Barr and Mr. Durham. My guess is Mr. Halper's going to cancel. If you remember, Christopher Steele was supposed to appear at some sort of a function like that, and he pulled out of it. Yes, he did. So yeah, this doesn't surprise me, but I'm sure that there'll be probably quite a few people in attendance there, and just in case Halper doesn't cancel, I would assume that there'll be quite a few reporters now that'll show up there, as well as probably maybe some investigators might show up there and do a little spying of their own on Halper and Dearlove and all the rest. These people, this shows you how arrogant that they are. Halper's been pretty much keeping quiet up until now, but these people are pretty arrogant. They believe that they are going to be protected because they always have been. I mean, they know that they do this stuff all the time. Sometimes they get caught. It's a little bit of a problem, but they never actually are held accountable. Never. And this is why so many of us believe that they must be held accountable this time, because this was something different. This wasn't some, dictator in a third world country or something like that. This was an American president in a presidential election, and it involved many foreign governments that were involved in this. So this is why this has to be ironed out, and I think that that's the way Barr feels about it too. Now, you have to remember that there's still a lot of deep state players at the DOJ, and we know that because there's real crimes that are committed by FBI and DOJ people all the time, and they never face any accountability for that. So I think that there's going to be way too much pressure in this particular case for that to happen. And I also don't believe that William Barr came out of retirement so that he could have this fanciful exercise only to get to the end of it and say, yeah, a lot of people did a lot of bad things, but, we're not really going to do anything. We're just going to go ahead and let everybody know that this would happen. Maybe we need to have some stronger rules for the FISA court. Maybe we need to have some more oversight, blah, 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 blah. See, I don't believe any of this is going to fly, and I don't think Barr would have come back into the fray, put himself through all this for a big fat nothing burger at the end of it all. I just don't believe that. So it's a kind of gut instinct, and along with the fact that there's too much information out there, too many people know what went down, and I think there will be severe blowback, and they want to get the FISA court reauthorized. They have to do that every 2 years. And it's going to be very hard to get the FISA court reauthorized if something, if something isn't done about the way it was abused, and I don't just mean saying, okay, well, we need another committee, a special committee to watch over the FISA, or we need, some more rules or whatever. What is clear in this particular instance is that it doesn't matter what kind of rules you come up with. It doesn't matter what kind of oversight you come up with. All those things existed in this particular case. There were rules that should have prevented what happened, but they broke the rules. There is oversight, but what happened when certain members of Congress tried to do oversight? They were told, sorry, you can't look at this. So they get blocked from doing the oversight that they're supposed to have. So this is what everyone is witnessing and has seen over the past 2 years. So these things are not going to fly anymore. So yes, we'll see if Halper shows up at Cambridge for this little spy event, if Mr. Dearlove shows up. But I do expect there'll be a lot of reporters hanging around there looking for them, and possibly even a few spies as well. Would not be surprised at all. So, excuse me. So Andy McCabe is over on CNN today. Many of you saw that. Or yesterday, I guess we'd say. Saying that the impeachment hearings against Trump should begin immediately. Man, this guy is so loaded up on arrogance and hubris. And again, for the same reason. Because as far as he's concerned, he had a criminal referral for lying to the FBI twice and the IG once. And we know that they let him off the hook. They're not going to do anything to McCabe. Or anyone else. And that's why you cannot leave it up to them. Cannot be left up to them. And I think that that's what Barr understands, and I think that's why he appointed Durham. Because ultimately, what should happen here is that Durham, once he finds the evidence, should convene a grand jury. And then it will be a grand jury who will decide if these people should be indicted. Not some career hack, deep stater over at the DOJ making that decision about Andy McCabe. It'll be a grand jury. And that's why this needs to be handled this way, in a criminal way. And I think that that's why Barr put in Durham. I mean, if William Barr didn't intend to make it possible for there to be criminal prosecutions, he wouldn't have appointed Durham. He simply would have passed this on off for Horowitz. Okay, Horowitz, here's some more stuff you can investigate and write a report on that you can pass along to the DOJ with criminal referrals that will never be acted on. He could have done that very easily. But that's not what he did. He appointed a U.S. attorney who he knows is not afraid of the deep state. He's got a track record. And now, Mr. Durham has brought in an entire team of investigators and prosecutors. And I understand he's got a woman now working as his right-hand person in this deal. And she supposedly has a reputation of being very hard-nosed and very, very good. And not afraid to go after government misconduct. So, I believe that McCabe is a fool for going on TV, on CNN, of course, and continuing to spout this nonsense. When, in fact, McCabe is signed off on one of those FISA warrants. I think on the first renewal is the one he signed off on. Of course, he was fired for leaking and lying. And another thing I should mention is that I think that the first indictment you're going to see when the grand jury is impaneled, and I think the first thing they're probably going to look at is the FISA, lying to the FISA court, because this is the most obvious thing that we all know. And something that's kind of strange about these FISAs, there was 4 of them, the original renewal, the original one, 3 renewals. Trey Gowdy suggested there may have even been a 5th FISA based on the dossier. But what's strange about this is if you look at all these FISAs, it was different people signing off, 3, 4, 5 different people signing off on all these. So it wasn't like the first FISA, Comey, and Yates, and Bowditch, and these other guys signing off on all of them. No. every single one of these vices, they used different people. They used Comey on heading up one, McCabe heading up the other, Strzok on another. So they're using, there's probably the 4 different FISA warrants, the original and the renewal. You probably have 12, 15 different high-level people, DOJ, FBI, signing off on these FISAs. And we don't know about this 5th one that Trey Gowdy is referring to. But we do know that on the Carter Page situation, and it looks like these FISAs were all based on the Steele dossier and the Shearer dossier. The Shearer dossier and the Steele dossier. And so I don't really see how any of the people who signed off on any of these, the original and the 3 renewals, cannot be indicted. I just don't see how that's possible. If, in fact, we have an honest Attorney General, and I think we do, and a solid prosecutor who's going to follow the law, it just simply isn't possible. We know that that was seriously misleading, and you can say lying to the FISA court. And again, it's just very strange, and I think Barr mentioned this. I don't know if he said specifically this, that all the different people that signed off on the FISAs, but he did mention that it was unusual the way this was all done, held within these high top-level people, not normally how things are done. And as far as the FISAs are concerned, it seems pretty strange that you would have a different group of 3 to 5 individuals doing the sign-offs on these FISAs, particularly because they're all in the same person. I mean, you'd think that they get the first FISA warrant on Carter Page, Comey, Yates, and Bowditch and the other guy, the primary signers on that one. You would think that when they go get a second, third, of course, Comey would have been there for the second FISA, but he was fired by the time the second renewal, the third FISA, was done, the 3rd and 4th. Rodenstein signed off on the 4th one. So you have the top dogs, McCabe, Comey, Rodenstein, and Strzok as being the primaries signing off the top line signatures on those FISAs. So all these people who signed off on these FISAs, I'm convinced, have to be indicted. If that does not happen, I will have to see the explanation for why. Because certainly they lied to the FISA court. It's very, very simple. So, yes, McCabe, it's I have no explanation for why McCabe and Comey and these people continue to go out and run their mouth, other than the fact that they've just simply been in the deep state for so long, and they know from history and their own personal experience up to this point that they are never ever held accountable, that they can do whatever they want, and when they get caught, nothing really happens other than he may have gotten fired, but he's still getting his pension, and basically these people were never really seriously prosecuted or punished up until now. But I believe that is going to change. I'm pretty highly confident that that is the case, and that these people are all in for a very big surprise. That's what I think. So a lot of you have been reading about this shakeup over at MSNBC, PMSNBC, I might say. Excuse me. Frog in the throat. So they have lost 30% over at PMSNBC. Over 30% since the Mueller report, and they were already down. And it's way worse at CNN. At least MSNBC had been getting pretty good ratings on a couple of their shows, like the Rachel Maddow. Rachel Maddow had been pulling in over 3 million viewers. Now she's down to about 1.8. So she's literally getting hammered, which means they're losing money on her because they're paying her a boatload of money. Their morning show only gets like 600,000 viewers. I mean, they've got to be losing money, or else maybe they're not paying these people as much as I think they are. But if they are paying them very much, they're losing a hell of a lot of money. But yeah, there's a big shakeup going on over at PMSNBC. It looks like they're having a shakeup in their daytime programming and that sort of thing. I don't know how much longer these networks like PMSNBC and CNN how much longer they can go on. Probably losing money. They got to be in the red at this point. I don't know how they can be profitable or even breaking even at this point with ratings where they are. And it's only going to get worse as more and more evidence comes out that the entire hoax against Trump, that was an entire hoax, and as more evidence comes out of the real crimes that occurred and things and such, and the day the first indictments come down, that is going to probably kill these networks, because everybody is going to run fast as they can over to find out more about that, and that will be covered on Fox. They will not be covering that on MSNBC and CNN. They will be spinning over there. They will be bringing on people to spin that, and people will know right away, well, this is obviously spin. Gee, I'm going to go over to where I can find out what's really going on. So the big crusher, the final, I guess you'd say, nail in the coffin for these people has not come yet. It will come when the first indictments come down and they try to spin that. And when that happens, people will realize, obviously, there's something bad wrong here, and what's left of the audience at MSNBC and CNN will flip the dial and go to where they can get the real news. Now, the New York Times is already beginning to flip. We saw a story in the Washington Post a couple of days ago. Now, a lot of times this is disinformation. This is the CIA or the DOJ or FBI trying to get out ahead. They know what's coming, so they believe if they begin to leak out bits and pieces of it in advance, they can weaken the effect, and they can also put the spin on it. But this is only going to work until the actual indictments come down, because that's where the rubber meets the road. And that's where it becomes a legal issue, a criminal issue, and not a political. Right now it's in the political realm. Everything is in the political realm. All the discussions are in the political realm. They can ignore Barr and Durham. They can ignore all these things. But once the indictments come down, you cannot, because now it is literally a criminal issue. And it's a real news issue. You really have to report that. When they indict McCabe and McComey and Strzok and Page and all the rest, those are not things you can ignore. Those are not things you can put political spin on, other than having people come out on MSNBC and CNN or the Washington Post or, some left-wing mag and say, well, this is just Trump getting back at his political enemies or something like that. Well, you can go ahead and say that, but ultimately, that's all political. And political only works against the political. Once you have the actual criminal, once you have the actual things happening that are, legitimately criminal cases and real things, these are real things now, the political arguments just essentially don't stand up, because people are kind of smart enough, even the pretty dumb ones are smart enough to realize, well, you bring on a group of political, talking heads, and they chat, they do their thing, but that really, no one really cares much about that when they're reading, on the other hand, actual, statements from a judge or from a prosecutor or from a witness or from, someone who was in the court proceedings or something like that. They pale in comparison. They can't really be compared. And, that all that political stuff gets drowned out by the very loud megaphone voice of the real news and the real thing that's going down, which will be in prosecutions and indictments and things and such. So it's not going to last forever. They're holding on, but it's not going to last forever. Maybe they think that the deep state will thwart Barr and Durham. We will have to find out. But ultimately, this decision is not going to be made by some DOJ deep staters. It's going to be made by a grand jury. Much, much different. Much, much different. This is funny. Jim Acosta. Jim Acosta, of course, he's got a book out. And he had a book signing yesterday in Arlington, Virginia at the Barnes & Noble. And literally nobody showed up. Jim Acosta is, and that's a pretty, high-profile store in Arlington, Virginia, Barnes & Noble. I mean, you generally go in there just about any time of day. There's shoppers and people in there. But these pictures that you're seeing Jim Acosta sitting there, and there's no one. He's ready to sign books. Books are surrounding him on tables. He's ready to sign. There's no one. No one around him anywhere. No one buying the Jim Acosta book. No one even coming over to say hi or get an autograph or anything. I mean, it's literally, he's sitting there, and he's like, there's nobody there. So, yeah, I don't know who would want to buy Jim Acosta's book. I mean, we're talking about it. He works for a network that has practically no viewers. A lot of people probably don't even know who he is. So that's pretty funny. Yeah. So this thing I've been wanting to talk about for the last couple of days, we hear these Democratic talking points all the time, where you'll hear a talking point and then it gets repeated by all the lefties in the news media, in print and in cable news media. You'll hear the Hollywood lefties repeating it. You'll hear the crazy SJW people repeating it. It's just, it literally gets repeated by everyone on the left. It'll be just a couple word talking point. And you see this all the time. Now, the one that they've been using for the past week, that they've really been hitting hard, is this phrase, not above the law. Saying, well, this president is not above the law. Or this attorney general is not above the law. Or this person not above the law. Talking about Trump and people around him. And I'm just thinking to myself, are they being, lured into this trap? I mean, are they aware of what they're saying? Because when they go out and make these statements, no one is above the law, the way that is going to be turned around on them, you got to wonder. And I just assume that there's got to be certain media pundits out there who are watching this and are quite aware of it, just as I am, who have got to be cataloging and putting together snippets of all these media pieces where you'll see, Elizabeth Warren or the Right Reverend Clinton or, any, you name the Democrat, whether they're in the media, whether they're in Hollywood, whether they're in entertainment, whether they're, a politician. If they're on the left, this past week, they probably said somewhere in a speech or in a statement or in a Twitter post, they probably said, so-and-so, Trump or Barr, whoever, is not above the law. I have to imagine that someone's putting together a montage of all these comments and statements and video clips of these Democrats, these demo commies, making this statement, because it's going to be used against them here in whenever the indictments start coming down. And what happens? What happens when we finally discover what we all know, which is that Barack Hussein Obama was up to his eyeballs in a lot of scandals, quite honestly, including the big one that may or may not come out as a result of this investigation, the fact that he had this Operation Hammer, where he's been spying on people for years, going back to 2012 at least. But I mean, specifically his role in what he knew about the coup against Trump. Now, we all know that he was up to his eyeballs in it, knew everything. And, of course, we know that we had one text from Lisa Page back on September 12th of 2016, where she told her lover, Peter's been stroking us, that POTUS wants to know everything we're doing. Then, a couple weeks later, after that, still, again, before the election, another tweet or another text from Page to Been Stroking Us saying, basically, the White House is running this. And, of course, we know that John Brennan set up this secret little task force and that they were briefing Obama on a fairly regular basis. On a fairly regular basis. We know all about that now. That was from Paul Sperry this past week. Although that was reported a long, long time ago. We just got more details and more confirmation of something that we already knew existed. So there's no question Obama up to his eyeballs. I find it very hard to believe that they're going to be able to go do a thorough investigation, get all these people, and then somehow leave Obama out of it. I don't think it's possible, and especially since you got Clapper, who on two separate occasions, Clapper has said on CNN that Obama is the one, he says credit. He said, well, we have to credit Obama because he's the one that directed us to do this investigation. So there you have Clapper, and I don't know if he was just sending a message to Obama or anyone else, hey, don't roll over on me, because I don't think it's possible, even if they try to cover for Obama, and some of them may try to cover for Obama, I just don't think that it's going to be possible, because I don't think anyone, certainly not Barr, certainly not Durham, they're not going to believe, nor would any sane or rational person believe, that all these things would have been carried out without at least the knowledge of the president. Almost, I would think, almost certainly they had to be getting a confirmation or even a flat-out directive from the president to do this. But there's no way Brennan, Clapper, Comey, the whole nine yards, the State Department, the DOJ, that the people are all in, all doing all this stuff on the coup, the whole nine yards, and then Obama's sitting back not knowing anything. I think that this is just crazy. I think Barr and Durham know that eventually that this is going to find its way right to Obama's doorstep. And when it does, you want to have all those clips, a montage of all those clips of all those Democrats, Pelosi and Schumer and Schiff and all the rest. You want to have the clips already loaded and ready to go. And I'm sure probably people over at Hannity or Tucker Carlson or whatever already have their producers doing this now, putting together the montage, just waiting. And when they finally point the finger at Obama and say, okay, it's time to have a talk with Obama. What did he know and when did he know it? And at that point, that's when the story is going to just be unbelievably big. At that point, the whole world will be brought in on this story if they're not already. Because when it gets to the point where when it becomes public that they're going to interview Obama, that's it, pretty much. And he is going to be in very deep shit. Because, quite honestly, there's just no way that this could have happened without his knowledge. And probably without him co-directing it in some way. And I think that Barr and Durham know eventually that's where they're going to find themselves. I mean, they know this is not limited to just Comey and Yates and Lynch and that type of thing. I mean, they know that this does not happen without the president. And then, of course, with all the texts that we have from Page and Strzok, and there's probably others we haven't seen with all the other information. We know about the secret communications with the Rotten Reverend Clinton. She was communicating with Obama using another name, just like Loretta Lynch. These people were communicating all throughout. And I assume at some point Barr and Durham are going to want to find out from all these people. Lynch, certainly, we already know she was using another name, communicating with the Right Reverend Clinton on her server. We know Obama was. And eventually that question is going to be asked to him. And eventually they're going to want to get those communications. And I think when those communications come out between the Right Reverend Clinton and Obama himself, the two top principals of this fiasco, I think that's when it ends right there for both the Right Reverend and Obama. I think at that point, Barr and Durham have a fairly tough decision, and I think that's something they're probably already thinking about. Barr's certainly thinking about it. Not so much. I think he knows pretty damn well what went on. I think the issue he has is how do I do this? How we're going to get to Obama's front door, and when we get there, we know he's all in on this thing. How are we going to handle that? What's that going to look like? So we saw what happened with Watergate with Nixon, and of course they tried to do this to Trump. Obama's going to find himself under the hot seat, and it's not too far down the road, I do not believe. Now, we also have recent tweets. We have Paul Sperry tweeting out that Mike Rogers, we're talking about the good Mike Rogers, the former NSA director Mike Rogers, Admiral Mike Rogers, is talking to Durham. Mike Rogers is talking to Durham. And right there you go. Now, Mike Rogers would know about all kinds of communications, including communications between the Right Reverend and Obama. Now, he probably had no legal reason to look at those and probably has not. But he knows that they exist. I pretty much guarantee you that, because he probably was aware of things that were going on with the Right Reverend Clinton's homebrew server. And so he's probably aware of these things, but he probably hasn't looked at him because he probably didn't have the legal authorization to do so, but he knows that information is there. And he certainly knows who these contractors were. And who are these contractors tied to? Are they tied to Obama? Or are they tied to Fusion GPS? Or who? I would think that they're tied to Obama, because what we've been hearing is he had this program he was running with Mr. Potato Head at the CIA, spying on his political enemies going back to 2012. And apparently, these private contractors that were accessing this NSA database that Mike Rogers discovered and reported on and reported to the FISA court, this was going on long before 2016. This was stuff that was going on at least in 2015, maybe earlier, likely earlier. These may have been people who were involved in before even the Trump campaign, who were these private contractors, may have likely have been there already from the Obama program he was running, and that when the Trump thing kicked in, they just began using them to do that kind of work as well. So, you know, I think a lot is going to come out from Mike Rogers and his testimony, and it's very damning, and he would be one hell of a witness. So there was a question, I forget who asked the question about the fact that the FBI did interview Misfit back in February of 2017, about 2.5, 3 weeks after they interviewed Garoppolos. And the question, why did they not arrest Misfit? Because obviously they knew at that point that, in fact, they told Garoppolos, yeah, we know Misfit dropped this information on you. So they knew that Misfit, according to Garoppolos, was the guy who said, yeah, Russia's got, you know, Hillary's emails. So they got Misfit. They know that from Garoppolos' testimony, and of course they believe that because it's in the Mueller report. So the FBI clearly believed that Misfit gave Garoppolos this information. Why didn't the FBI indict or arrest Misfit right on the spot? Or why didn't they indict him at some point down the road and have him extradited back? And of course, to me, the answer is very obvious. That's because the Mueller team obviously knew that Misfit was basically an asset, a protected asset in the coup. So that's why, Misfit was being protected. But he's not anymore. It looks like Italy is going to give him up. We also have Garoppolos tweeting, says that the Mueller team told him that Downer was spying on him and recording him. And he also thinks, Garoppolos, his gut instinct is that Downer was actually working directly for the Clintons, that he may have been brought into the game directly by the Clintons. Now, if you remember, I went through this scenario just a day or two ago, 1 or 2 videos ago, where I explained what happened when Halper was supposed to get the information out of Garoppolos. Garoppolos clammed up. Halper leaves the restaurant and very angry. His honeypot sticks around, tries to get Pops, but he blows her off too. He leaves, and the next thing you know, here comes Alexander Down the Hatch Downer. He shows up. Garoppolos still to this day says that he doesn't recall and doesn't think he said anything to Downer about Russians or Hillary's emails. He believes that Downer was brought into the game by the Clintons directly. And he says that in his time with the FBI, they essentially told him that Downer had been spying on him. Oh my. Well, lots to come, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See you guys. Bye.